for New York and sending a message to the nation.
Welcome to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Dan Clark. We are so close to Election Day, and it just feels like everyone's a little on edge, right? And there's good reason for that. This election is really important for a lot of people from both of the state's major parties. It's so important, in fact, that we've already seen more than 1 million people vote early in New York. That's compared to about 250,000 last year. And some people have waited for hours in line to vote, in bad weather too. That happened across the state, but especially in New York City. Lines wrapped around city blocks at some polling sites, and people had to wait a long time to cast their votes. And now some are calling for changes at the City Board of Elections. Here's Governor Cuomo this week.
I think the Board of Elections in New York City did a terrible job, terrible. And it's not the first time. And I think I would be open to a entire redesign of the New York City Board of Elections system. I think the city, I'd be open to whatever the city proposes to just redesign from the ground up the New York City Board of Elections, period.
But any changes made to the state's election system will come long after Election Day, and that's going to depend on who wins at the polls. Let's get an Election Day preview from Karen DeWitt from New York State Public Radio and Joe Spector from USA Today. Thank you both for being here.
Glad to be here.
So it is a big election year in New York for a lot of reasons, namely the state Senate and some seats in Congress. I want to go to you first, Karen. What are you watching this year?
Well, what I am watching is the Senate Democrats. Are they going to gain any seats?
The state Senate Democrats.
State Senate, yes. As you might remember, in 2018, they picked up a lot of seats from Republicans. They just need 2 more to have a supermajority. And that's important because they could potentially override any veto that Governor Andrew Cuomo issued. And that could really change the balance of power between the legislature and the governor, because right now it seems like the governor has all the power. He has all these emergency powers because of the COVID pandemic. He has a lot of powers in the budget, one through court cases from his predecessors. So I think the Democrats in the Senate feel like if they could get enough members, gang up with the Democrats in the Assembly who have enough members for an override, they could use that leverage in budget negotiations. And the times when they disagree with Cuomo, they don't disagree with him on a lot. Cuomo has actually gone along with a lot of their agenda in the last 2 years, but I think that that's something that they're hoping they can just have a shift and just gain a little bit of power back, because it doesn't seem like they have a lot right now.
And it's funny because it seems like they want that power, but they don't openly publicly want it. I don't think that they would ever say in public, we want to get a supermajority so we can override the veto, but you can definitely tell that it's there for them.
Yeah, well, actually, Senator Gianaris, Mike Gianaris of Queens, who's kind of the mastermind of the whole strategy, he did pretty much say that to me. I have to say, I was surprised that he said that outright. He's like, well, it would give us some leverage in cases. So, he's definitely openly saying it.
Right, that's it. I mean, so for so many years, for a decade or more, it was always you go into election night with the headline, who will control the state Senate? And in 2008, Democrats were able to win it. Republicans won it back. Then you had this bifurcated legislature, Senate, where Republicans were in control with the help of Democrats. Well, you don't have that going into election year. Democrats hold 40 seats. Republicans only hold 23. So the question will be, will they get that supermajority? Will Republicans get a few more seats? But it's not hanging in the balance as it has been for a decade or more. So it's really trying to look at where the key seats will be. And to Karen's point, if Democrats get that supermajority, well, what practically will that mean? It'll only mean that when they go into negotiations with Cuomo, they could sort of have that in the back that if, we could override your veto if you don't like what if we don't like what you do. So that's hanging there. But nonetheless, you look around the state a little bit. Races on Long Island, Hudson Valley, the Rochester area, I would say as well. You have 9 Republican senators who are retiring. Yeah. So you're talking about, in most cases, Republicans who have long held seats where there actually might be a Democratic majority of voters. Now those longstanding Republicans who are popular, well-known, like Ken LaValle on Long Island, John Flanagan, the former majority leader who is not going to be there, Rich Funke up in Rochester, right. Joe Robach in particular, a Republican who has held a largely Democratic seat that covers a big swath of the city of Rochester.
Right, and his family's been there about 100 years?
Well, his father was the assemblyman, of course. Right? Yeah, so, and so when they've looked at the map over the years, Democrats across the state would say, Joe Robach, look at that seat. That's a Democratic seat. You know, we can easily win that. But then you got to tell him, wait a minute, Joe Robach is an establishment there.
Yeah.
You're not going
Yeah.
to be able to beat him. Now he's gone, Rich Funke. So now you put a lot of races in open seats, and that really creates a lot of uncertainty about who's going to hold those come after Election Day.
Right, and the Republican candidates they're just not as well known as like a Robach, like you mentioned, or a John Flanagan, or Ken LaValle, who had been there for a very long time. So the Republicans have an uphill battle. I think their challenge is to stay relevant. They don't want to go down to 18 or 17 seats. They know they're in the minority, but they still want to be part of things.
Right.
And I think that's their challenge. Can they win back some seats on Long Island, where the Democrats took them in 2018? A number of them are first-term Democrats who aren't as well known as the Republican predecessors. So that's where they're looking to gain some
Well, and
seats
you talk
back.
about the supermajority, Karen. You know, you have Ron Lauder, the Estee Lauder heir, who has pumped $5 million into helping some Republicans in key seats.
This is so weird. Why?
Well, that's the
Why did
question,
he do
right?
this?
It's not a broad strategy. And so you've heard Democrats say, well, maybe it's being done to prevent Democrats from getting that supermajority.
Right.
So it's a
And
real
who would that
strange
benefit?
dynamic that you only see in New York. I mean, if you remember, it was Mike Bloomberg when he was mayor who would put a lot of money into Senate Republicans to keep them in the majority. But you kind of knew the reason why there. He was mayor. He had an interest in keeping them in power.
Well, with this one, if you connect the dots, who would benefit by not having a supermajority that might override some vetoes? And that's some of the rumors is Andrew Cuomo behind it. Although Cuomo, he hasn't acted like he's very worried about it at all. In fact, he's done some fundraisers for, I think, 9 different Senate Democrats. And in the past, he's been criticized for not doing enough. So it doesn't seem like he's doing anything overtly to not have the Democrats win.
And this week in particular as well, he did a conference call with members of the Long Island delegation
You're
of
right.
Democrats who, as you said, Joe, are in a very, very tight toss-up races down there on Long Island to announce legislation geared against utility companies, which obviously failed to restore power in a timely manner after Tropical Storm Isaias. So,
And who doesn't hate the downstate utilities,
exactly.
right? I mean,
If
that's
there's
a great
one thing
issue.
that we can all gang up against, it's those utility
Yeah.
companies who keep on raising my bills.
Which is interesting in that, flash back a few years ago, Republicans held all 9 seats on Long Island, the Republican 9, as
Yeah,
they were
right.
known as. Now they're down to 2.
Yeah.
And so you go into this election, and that's a real battleground. Same for the Hudson Valley. You look at Rob Astorino versus Pete Harckham. Pete Harckham, a freshman Democrat in the Hudson Valley, Westchester, Putnam, and Dutchess, that district covers. So not only do you have Republicans who are retiring, but you have Democrats who are freshmen who are trying to win a second term in races that, again, become battleground seats.
All right, before I let you guys go, Karen, I want to talk to you about prisons in New York. There's been this huge outbreak at Elmira Correctional Facility in Elmira. I looked at the numbers. In early October, it was 3 inmates that were diagnosed as positive. As of Wednesday of this week, that's the last time I checked, it was close to 600.
It's like 40% of the inmates.
Right, what's happening here?
Well, the prisons were largely spared in the spring. But I don't know, someone described COVID-19 as a wave, and it's just going to keep going, and it's going to hit places, it hit New York City, it hit different areas, and it's getting into places like the Southern Tier, where Elmira is, a couple other prisons one other prison that's having trouble there in Southport, and I think that's, it's getting in there, and it's a congregate setting. The governor and his aides, they say they're taking steps, they're going to try to isolate the older and sicker prisoners, and they're doing testing, they ban visiting, they're trying to social distance them. But how much can you social distance? It's a
Exactly.
prison.
It's a prison.
It's a congregate setting.
How many isolated places can you find in a prison when you have thousands of inmates and hundreds of them have been diagnosed with the disease? It's a question that I think DOCS is going to have to continue asking itself in every facility. So we'll watch it. Joe Spector from USA Today, Karen DeWitt from New York State Public Radio. Thank you both so much.